And so I took this correspondence course while I was in the CC camps and could do the lessons. I was up in the North Woods, up north of Duluth at Tofty, Minnesota, and I finished that course in the 6 months that I was going to the CC camps. And then I went, they had a period of, I think it was just 3 weeks that we went down to the lab to see what we were, a little bit what we were talking about when we were taking the course. But that, to fast forward a little bit, that was very, very fortunate for me in my later service with the Navy and stuff, because it gave me a leg up on most of the other people. I basically had some skill that, well, it wasn't common to possess them, let me say it that way. So that was, I did that. And then after that, a friend of mine and I, his girlfriend came out to California for a while, and he didn't want to be without her. And so he and I, we hitchhiked out to California from Minnesota in the winter of 40? It was probably early 1941. Anyway, we came out to California, and so that was my first glimpse of California. I recall we came in January or February of 41, real early. Didn't stay for too long. But when 40? We came down, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I guess it would be 41. Okay, right.
Yeah, real early 41. And when we came down out of the mountains from the Las Vegas area in the middle of winter, and the oranges were in the valley down there. Well, orange juice, 10 cents, all you could drink. I mean, that was on these roadside stands. I was real impressed with that. We only stayed for a few weeks out here and went back then. But that was a very memorable experience, that trip in the middle of winter from Minnesota on hitchhiking all the way. And then I came back, and jobs were no better than they were before. And I'd been thinking about joining up in the service, and I made some inquiries and ended up going into the Navy.
Why the Navy?
Okay, why the Navy? First of all, the options, of course, there was no Air Force. It was the Army or the Navy or the Coast Guard. I made inquiries to get into the Coast Guard, and my logic there in considering the Coast Guard was that they had a base in Duluth, where the Navy didn't have anything like that, and Duluth was just 40 miles from my home. And I'm still enough of a farm boy, I guess I wanted to be, if possible, kind of close to home. But that didn't work out, and the only reason it didn't was an odd quirk, that the Navy, I could join in Duluth. I could enlist in the Navy in Duluth, 30 miles from home. If I wanted to join the Coast Guard, I'd have to go to Omaha, Nebraska, because that was their nearest recruiting place for the Coast Guard. So that didn't get very far. So I went to the Navy, and then I started thinking about what opportunities each one offered, and the Coast Guard work, I know a little bit what they did up on the Great Lakes, so life-saving and maritime stuff, and but a little more localized, let's say. So then the Navy started to sound a little bit better to me, and I made inquiries to get into the Navy, and I was quickly accepted and stuff for that. Went to boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois, a little north of Chicago, March 1941. And the story that I like to tell to people is I'd heard about them eating beans in the Navy beans, blah, blah, and didn't really believe they ate as many as they said. But we got off the train coming from Minneapolis, as I recall, that about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, they marched us over to the mess hall to eat. The first meal we had was beans. Just baked beans for breakfast and stuff. I don't remember if they had anything else or not, but I was so amazed to see those baked beans there. But I went through Great Lakes boot camp then. As I recall, that was a 6 weeks tour at that time. And during that time, we took tests and stuff like that, aptitude tests for possible further training. That because I had that radio course, that correspondence course, that I kind of had a leg up, I think, and I was selected to go to aviation radio school in Alameda. The base was just opening. We were the first class there, and this was about June of 1941.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Could you describe just like a typical day in boot camp?
Oh,
What did they do to you?
Oh, yeah, okay, sure will. Well, first thing, everything, as I recall, we got up at 5:30 or 6. Get dressed and get ready, and run, march. You didn't walk usually, everything was running over to the mess hall to eat. Then we would have schooling. Could either be classroom type or something in the field. Let's say ship recognition as far as the classroom type and stuff, on ship nomenclature and stuff, a little bit of protocol for the Navy, procedures, always saluting officers, and yes, sir. In fact, one of the stories I recall from that is if an officer tells you to jump, that on the way up you say, "How high, sir?" And that's one of the way we were taught to respect the officers, the uniform of the officer. Well, that's another little kind of a different story. But we did that, and then there was a lot of physical activity. I can remember the old manual of arms. They issued us old military rifles, and though we had no ammunition in them and stuff, they were still the thing that we used for a lot of physical training. And well, heck, I'm being photographed here. I can remember that the song yet that goes with that 16, I think it was 16 points in the manual, the taking this rifle and up over your head and all of this sort of stuff. And we did that an awful lot. Running around the football field, the gridiron, that with holding a rifle over your head and stuff for to develop muscles and things, I guess.
Did they make you march a lot?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Now, we didn't march at that time on 10-mile and 20-mile marches that I did later on in a different program, but yeah, we did a lot of marching. And then we also spent quite some time on the rifle range where we learned to handle basically small arms that I can't remember firing machine guns and stuff while in boot camp, but small arms fire we did. And then one thing that was very unique there is when we first got there, of course none of us had probably ever slept in a hammock except maybe a lawn type one, but the Navy hammocks were a little different. They were just a piece of canvas stretched between two poles that were about, I'll say, 10 feet apart, and when the hammock was stretched there, so you could lay into it, that it just was just a straight ball of canvas, and you had to open this up and crawl into it. Well, when we first got to boot camp, our hammocks were 4 feet off the deck, and the idea is that they knew that many of us kids off the farm were going to fall out of those things. And I don't think anybody did not fall out of a hammock in the beginning. Well, then after about 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it was, I don't recall for sure, but then they raised them to 8-foot hammocks. Now you've got to almost jump up to grab the lines between them and hoist yourself up to get into that thing. But by that time, we were a little more experienced, and we slept in 8-foot hammocks. That some fellows fall out of those, and some were hurt. Oh, I don't think too seriously, but to fall down from 8 foot while you're asleep, it's kind of high. But that was unique. The hammocks are gone by the wayside now.
But was that standard? It was 8-foot high hammock standard?
Yeah, in boot camp it was at that time.
At the time.
Yeah.
But when you got out of boot camp, were they still 8 feet high?
I'm sorry?
After boot camp, when you were actually on a ship, were they still 8 feet
oh yeah,
high?
on ship, when I was on board ship, that the hammocks were used, that the lower ranks, of which of course we were at that time, seamen, 3rd, 2nd, 1st class, that we slept in the mess hall, and after the evening meal, then all the tables, they were folding tables, you folded these tables up, stacked them over here, and they all had, all the mess halls, there's a mess hall on the ships that I was on, they have stanchions these are only about 4 feet off the deck too, and and then you slung your hammock. The slinging of the hammock, between those things, you tied it for the night, you got up there and slept, and in the morning you had to get up, take up your hammock, put up the tables, and now it's the mess hall. And so on board ship, I slept on hammocks for a while.
Wow.
Then let's see, where are we now here? Remind me.
Oh, was that, okay, that was your day at boot camp, your typical day? Okay, so you went to Alameda for the radio?
Thank you. Okay. Well, and then I was selected for radio school in Alameda. It happened to be the first class that was out there. The base had just opened. There was no grass, as I recall, no sidewalks. And when we would go from the barracks to the mess hall to the classroom, it was all sand. The bay was filled in there, and it was just light sand. And we had to run most of the way. And oh, that was hard running in that sand all the time. Good training, but hard running. So we did that. And I got out of Alameda and was assigned. You weren't asked where you wanted to go or anything. They went A through D, go here, and D through F, go here. And I happened to be assigned to the patrol squadron out in Hawaii. Now, of course, the training that I went through at radio school was to be a radioman on an aircraft or ship, which way they chose it, and I was assigned to an aircraft squadron. Some of the guys were assigned to ships. Shortly after that, the rate that we were, quote, striking for, and that's, when I say striking, it's the term used in the Navy while you're training for a certain for a certain job skill. And for me, it was radioman, either shipboard or aviation. That I, again, relate back to the fact that I had that course in radio, at that correspondence course that I mentioned, and that gave me an edge up on the other guys because I knew a little bit about electricity. Also, I had fortunately taken typing in high school, and that one of the qualifications of a radioman is you have to be able to type the messages as you're receiving the code. Now, Morse code, I suppose most people have heard of it, but it's not exactly a required skill anymore. In fact, along that line, I think it's interesting the way job needs are changing in our society. My wife was trained as a stenographer. She knew Gregg shorthand and that sort of stuff. She ended up as the personal stenographer for a fellow a man that was one of the smaller wheels at Western Electric Company. I was trained as a radio operator, and of course, during our lifetimes, the need for those skills completely vanished. There's no need at all for either of them anymore. So one has to, I feel, accept the fact that what you know now may not serve you too well down the road a piece. And that's the way society is going, and now, of course, it's especially changing. Well, okay.
So when did you get, so how long did your radio school last in Alameda?
Okay, I'm going to say it was 8 or 12 weeks. Let's see, okay. I think we started in June, I think finished in September. So I'm 8 to 12, something like that.
Okay, so about September, now you're on your way to Hawaii.
Correct, and I got ordered to Hawaii.
And you got there how?
I'm sorry?
How did you get there?
Well, when we were scheduled to leave, we were assigned to take a ship out of San Francisco Bay to go to Hawaii, and I think it was a Navy ship. And the morning they took us down to the boathouse, got in a boat, and went out. Look, the coxswain could not find that ship. Now, there was no radar or anything at that time. It was very foggy on the bay. We cruised around out there for at least 2 hours trying to find that ship. Could not find it, and came back. Of course, the ship sailed. It went without us. And then, so then they transferred us first down to San Diego. I think we took a train to San Diego, and then we got another ship down in San Diego.
And found that one, huh?
Yeah, they found that one. That was it was an old tanker, USS Sabine, was taken over from Standard Oil, as I understand, and the Navy took it over, and they took us out to Hawaii on
Just kind of helped themselves. They thank you, Standard Oil, and took the ship.
What? Sorry.
They just kind of took the ship from the oil company.
I'm sorry, I still.
Oh, I'm sorry. They just took that ship from the oil company. They just said
Well,
thank
I
you
say
and-
took, least, I don't know
Oh,
what
maybe
they
they
were.
stole, okay.
Yeah, I don't really know what the circumstances were, but there was.
Do you know what the ship was you were supposed to leave on? And
No, I don't know what that
Oh,
was.
okay.
I don't
Just
know
some
what.
mystery
yeah,
ship
sure.
and it's gone
I don't
and-
know. I
okay.
don't know what that was.
Okay.
That